Let's get something straight. Begging is not just an action, it's a state of being, and that state is one of psychological surrender. When you beg for someone's attention, affection, or approval, you are, in essence, admitting that you lack something fundamental, something that you believe only they can provide. And that's where the rot sets in. Because the moment you place another person's validation above your own self-respect, you've already lost. Think about it. What does begging actually communicate? On the surface, you might tell yourself it's about love, about devotion, about how much you care. But dig deeper, and the truth is far uglier. Begging says, I don't believe I'm worth staying for. It says, I need you more than you need me. And worst of all, it says, I have nothing better to offer than my desperation. Is that really the message you want to send? Is that the man you want to be? Here's the brutal reality. No one is attracted to desperation. Not in romance, not in business, not in life. Attraction is not built on pity or obligation. It's built on strength, on self-assuredness, on the quiet confidence that says, I am complete with or without you. When you beg, you invert that dynamic. You make yourself small. You hand over your power. And in doing so, you guarantee one of two outcomes. Either the other person will pity you, which is a death sentence for genuine respect, or they will resent you for the emotional burden you placed on them. Neither leads to love, neither leads to loyalty. Now, let's talk about the psychology behind why begging never works. Human beings are wired to value what they perceive as valuable. If you're constantly pleading, chasing, over-explaining, you're broadcasting that you don't value yourself. So why should they? It's a vicious cycle. The more you beg, the less they respect you. The less they respect you, the more you feel the need to beg. And round it goes, until you wake up one day and realize you've hollowed yourself out for someone who never even asked you to. But here's the flip side. Respect is magnetic. When you stand firm in your worth, when you refuse to debase yourself for scraps of attention, something remarkable happens. People notice. They may not always admit it, they may even push back at first, but on a primal level, they recognize strength. And strength commands respect, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. So how do you break the cycle? You start by understanding this fundamental truth. Love is not something you extract from another person through sheer force of need. Love is something that flows naturally between two people who choose each other freely, without manipulation, without guilt, without one side groveling at the feet of the other. If you have to beg for it, it was never yours to begin with. And that brings us to the most important question of all. What are you so afraid of losing? If the answer is someone who requires begging to stay, then you're not afraid of losing them. You're afraid of facing the void you've allowed to grow inside yourself. That void doesn't get filled by another person's presence. It gets filled by your growth, your purpose, your unshakable belief that you are enough. So stop begging. Stop negotiating for love. Stop acting as though your worth is determined by someone else's willingness to acknowledge it. The moment you stand up, truly stand up, and refuse to kneel for anyone, you'll find that the right people won't let you kneel. They'll meet you at eye level because that's where respect lives. Let's cut through the noise and address the uncomfortable truth head on. Chasing is just begging in motion. It's the same desperate energy repackaged as persistence. You tell yourself you're being romantic, that you're proving your devotion, that if you just try hard enough, she'll finally see your worth. But here's the reality you're avoiding. If she wanted to, she would. If she valued you, if she truly saw you as irreplaceable, you wouldn't need to convince her. You wouldn't need to perform. You wouldn't need to bleed yourself dry for scraps of her attention. This isn't cynicism, it's clarity. And clarity is what separates the men who waste their lives chasing illusions from the men who command real respect. So let's dissect this, because the psychology here is critical. When you chase someone who isn't reciprocating, you're not proving your love. You're proving your neediness. You're broadcasting that you have nothing better to do, no higher purpose, no sense of dignity that outweighs your hunger for validation. And nothing kills attraction faster than that. Think about it. What does chasing actually accomplish? At best, you might temporarily win someone's attention out of pity or obligation. But is that what you want? To be someone's charity case, to be tolerated rather than desired. Because that's the inevitable endgame of chasing. You become an emotional tax, a burden they resent rather than a prize they cherish. And the harder you push, the more they pull away, not because they're playing games, but because you're violating a fundamental law of human nature. People want what they can't have, and they devalue what comes too easily. Now, let's talk about the myth of the one. So many men are trapped in this fantasy that there's only one woman out there for them, and if they don't chase her down, they'll lose their shot at happiness. That's not romance, that's psychological enslavement. The truth is, there are millions of potential partners out there, but the only ones worth your time are the ones who choose you back, freely, enthusiastically, without manipulation or games. If you have to chase her, she's not the one. She's a lesson, and the lesson is this. A relationship that starts with you running will always leave you out of breath. So how do you break the cycle? First, you need to redefine what strength looks like. Real strength isn't about wearing yourself out trying to convince someone to love you. Real strength is walking away from anyone who doesn't recognize your value without being told. It's understanding that your time, your energy, and your emotional investment are finite resources, and wasting them on someone who isn't all in is the quickest way to bankrupt your self-respect. Second, you need to confront the fear driving your chasing, because that's what this is really about, fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear that if you stop chasing, you'll vanish from her mind entirely. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing, one of two things will happen. Either she'll realize what she's lost and come back with genuine interest, or she won't. And both outcomes are wins. Why? Because if she comes back, you'll know it's real, and if she doesn't, you'll know it never was. Either way, you're free. Free from the anxiety, free from the games, free to focus on building a life so compelling that the right people fight to be in it. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to forget, and that only happens when you stop chasing and start cultivating your purpose, your confidence, your unshakable sense of self. When you do that, something remarkable happens. The dynamic flips. Instead of you chasing her, she starts wondering why you're not chasing. Instead of you begging for her time, she starts worrying about losing yours. That's not manipulation, that's natural law. People are drawn to those who are too busy building empires to grovel for affection. So let me ask you, what's more attractive? A man who's constantly trying to prove his worth, or a man who knows his worth and lets his life speak for itself? The answer is obvious, and the choice is yours. You can spend your life running after people who don't want you, or you can stand still, build something extraordinary, and let the right ones find you. There's a fundamental misunderstanding in modern relationships about what communication actually means. We've been conditioned to believe that more is better, that if you just say enough words, send enough messages, pour out enough emotion, you'll somehow bridge the gap between you and someone who isn't meeting you halfway. But here's the truth you need to hear. Silence isn't empty. Silence is full of meaning. And in many cases, it's the most powerful message you can send. Let's break this down psychologically. When you bombard someone with texts, calls, or long emotional paragraphs, what you're really doing is revealing your own anxiety. You're showing your hand that you're uncomfortable with stillness, with uncertainty, with the space between action and response. And that discomfort broadcasts weakness. It tells the other person, loud and clear, that you're not in control of your own emotional state. Now ask yourself, is that the impression you want to give? Do you want to be seen as the man who can't handle a moment of silence without filling it with noise? The irony is that we often overcommunicate because we're trying to control the outcome. We think if we just explain ourselves one more time, if we just make our feelings a little clearer, the other person will finally understand and respond the way we want. But that's not how human connection works. Real connection isn't negotiated through sheer volume of words. It's either there or it isn't. And no amount of texting, calling, or explaining can manufacture genuine interest where none exists. In fact, the harder you try, the more you push it away, because nothing kills attraction faster than the scent of desperation. Consider this: when you're constantly reaching out, what are you actually saying about your own value? You're demonstrating that you have nothing better to do than wait for their response. You're showing that their attention is more important than your own time, your own peace, your own dignity. And here's the brutal part: people will treat you exactly how you teach them to treat you. If you teach them that you'll always be available, always responsive, always willing to break your own boundaries to keep the conversation going, why would they ever value your time? Why would they ever respect your silence? Now, let's talk about what happens when you stop over-communicating. When you resist the urge to fill the silence, something remarkable occurs. First, you reclaim your power. You demonstrate that your emotional state isn't dependent on their responses. You show that you have a life beyond this interaction, because you do, or at least you should. Second, you create space for the other person to actually miss you, to wonder about you, to experience what life feels like without your constant presence in their inbox or their voicemail. And that space is where real attraction either grows or fades. If it fades, it was never real to begin with. If it grows, you'll know it's genuine. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding human nature. People are drawn to what they can't fully possess, to what maintains some degree of mystery and independence. Think about the things you value most in your own life. Are they the things that are always available, always predictable, always right at your fingertips? Or are they the things you had to work for, the things that sometimes surprise you, the things that maintain their own identity separate from your desires? The answer is obvious, and the same principle applies to relationships. So how do you practice this? Start by recognizing that every unnecessary text, every redundant call, every emotional paragraph you're tempted to send is actually a betrayal of your own self-respect. It's you choosing anxiety over dignity, immediacy over worth. Instead, train yourself to sit with the discomfort of silence. Let the conversation breathe. Let the other person come to you. If they don't, you have your answer, and it's an answer you needed to hear. Remember, words are cheap. Action is everything. The right people will move mountains to be in your life. The wrong ones will make you feel like you're begging for crumbs. Stop confusing volume with value. Stop mistaking persistence for worth. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's the space where your power grows. Let me tell you something that will change everything about how you approach relationships. The most attractive quality a man can possess isn't money, looks, or charm. It's the unshakable belief that he is the prize, not in an arrogant way, not in a boastful way, but in the quiet, undeniable way of a man who knows his worth and refuses to settle for less. This isn't ego, this isn't narcissism, this is the fundamental truth that every human operates from, whether consciously or not. Here's why this matters. The world reflects back to you exactly what you believe you deserve. If you walk through life believing you need to earn love, to prove your worth, to convince someone to choose you, you've already lost. Because that mindset, that scarcity mentality bleeds into everything you do. It's in your posture, your voice, the way you hesitate before speaking your truth. And people notice. More importantly, women notice. They can sense when you're coming from a place of need rather than a place of strength. And nothing is less attractive than a man who doesn't see his own value. Now let's dissect this psychologically. Why do so many men struggle with this concept? Because we've been conditioned to believe that love is something we have to win, rather than something we naturally attract by becoming the best version of ourselves. We think we have to sacrifice, to compromise, to mold ourselves into what we think someone else wants. But that's backwards, completely backwards. The truth is this: you don't find love by looking for it. You find love by becoming someone worthy of love, and then letting love find you. Think about the most magnetic people you know, the men who seem to have it all together, who never chase but always have options. What do they have in common? They're invested in themselves first. They're not sitting around waiting for a text back. They're not analyzing every interaction for hidden meaning. They're too busy building their careers, their minds, their bodies, their purpose. And that focus, that self-possession, is what makes them irresistible. Because here's the secret: people are drawn to those who don't need them, but choose them. This is where most men go wrong. They think devotion means making someone else the center of their universe. But that's not devotion, that's dependency. And dependency kills attraction every time. A woman doesn't want to be your entire world. She wants to enhance the world you've already built for yourself. She doesn't want to be your purpose. She wants to join you in pursuing a purpose greater than either of you. That's the difference between neediness and true strength. So how do you shift your mindset? Start by asking yourself one brutally honest question. What do I bring to the table? Not what you hope to bring someday. Not what you think you could bring if given the chance. What do you actually offer right now? Be ruthless in this assessment. Because until you can answer that question with confidence, until you can look in the mirror and say, I am someone worth fighting for, you'll always be operating from a place of lack. You'll always be the one chasing rather than the one being chased. Then take action. Build a life that would make you proud, with or without a partner. Develop skills that command respect. Cultivate a physique that reflects discipline. Pursue goals that ignite your passion. Become so immersed in your own growth that you don't have time to worry about whether someone likes you or not. Because, here's the magic, the less you need validation, the more you'll receive it. The less you chase, the more you'll attract. This isn't theory, it's psychological fact. Now, let's address the fear behind this. The fear that if you focus on yourself first, you'll end up alone. That's the scarcity mindset talking. The truth is exactly the opposite. When you become the prize, you raise your standards, not your loneliness. You stop tolerating breadcrumbs because you know you deserve the whole meal. You stop settling for mixed signals because you respect yourself too much to play guessing games. And ironically, that's when the highest quality partners start appearing in your life, because like attracts like. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming secure. Secure in your worth. Secure in your boundaries. Secure in the knowledge that the right person will recognize your value without you having to perform, persuade, or prove anything. That security changes everything. It changes how you walk, how you talk, how you negotiate relationships. It transforms you from the supplicant to the selector, and that shift in energy is everything. So starting today, make this your mantra. I am not an option. I am the prize. Let that guide your decisions. Let that shape your standards. Let that determine who gets access to your time, your energy, your heart. Because the moment you truly believe it, not just say it, but live it, is the moment everything changes.